said, taking your life is not the answer. So if there's anybody listening today, taking your life is not the answer. She told her, taking your life is not the answer. And I only told you a little bit, and it got worse, and I didn't take my life. And it was like, well, dang, she didn't even say it out loud. How do you know what I was thinking? Mary said, because I've been in the seat where you're sitting today. So please, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Go get your girls, and you go up to the room, and there's stuff for you to watch and all that. Okay.
And she also reminded her. She also reminded her that she had she said that he would tell her the whole story if she stayed. So she reminded her of that conversation as well. And then she also told her why. She said why it's not going to help if you commit suicide, because you're going to leave your daughters tormented.
Right.
I have a cousin that she didn't commit suicide, but because she died, and she died of full-blown AIDS. She had gotten it from her husband. And when she died, she left 5 children. I believe she had 5 children. One of her daughters could not handle her loss of her mother. And she committed suicide a year later.
Wow.
She hung herself in the closet. And so I'm saying that the reason why suicide would not have solved the problem, it would have created more problems. It would have set a path for her daughters to have to triumph over all kind of issues because their mom committed suicide. Yes.
That was a very big part of the book story. Thank you for that part, because she reminded her, if you do that, then, your daughters are going to have to live with, why did she leave me? Why did she leave us? She doesn't love us anymore? That's a whole other dynamic. So anyway, she goes to, after she gets through the session, she promises her she'll be back tomorrow at 9 o'clock. She goes and meet her girls because her girls was in daycare. For all you guys that didn't know, she came to the clinic and her girls was in daycare. And Mary, in her shelter, she set it up where there was child care for the children, of the people she was seeing. So she goes and hugs them. And based on what her and Mary was talking about, it really reached her. And Mary knew that because her whole demeanor changed after the session was over. And she could see that what she was saying was impacting, and that's one of the goals that Vicki and I have, Miss Vicki and Dita have, that whenever we're doing presentations or speaking or doing a radio show, that we impact people, we touch them. Whatever they may be feeling, whatever we say may change their situation for the better. So she hugs her daughters, and she's thinking about what Mary just told her through her story, and she's like, her voices are talking to her now, but they're like positive. They're like, she's like, I can't leave my children. I can't leave my daughters, based on what Mary has said to her. So she's hugging them, and tears are coming down her face, and she's like, I can't leave my daughters. Can't do this. Okay, now let's go to chapter 6, where I'll pick up where I was at. So
actually, you mean chapter 7. You, DJ, I just want to clarify and help you to get on point. Chapter 5 was the one when they were revisiting with Mary and the guy and the woman, and they were moving and all that. Chapter 6 was what you just talked about, and now you're going into chapter 7.
I got a whole bunch more to do, so let me go back. So she was in the car. She was in the car, and she was just looking out the window and all that. So as they're going, Mary is seeing that it's no more buildings. It's no more apartments. The ground that they're driving on is really rocky, and they're going up hills, and it's just this one building. So they get to this one building, and Mary's like, okay, this is where my mommy works? And the guy was like, nope, but this is where you going to work. Okay. So I won't get into more details. Okay, they get out. So they're having a conversation. They bringing in their furniture and all that. And they having a conversation, but they trying to whisper, but they really not whispering, but Barry can hear. And it was brought up again. When you going to tell her? Because let me go back. When they were in the car, he basically told her that her mom was in a car accident and she got hit. Well, we know that wasn't true. And so then it came up again. When you going to tell her that her mama ain't coming back? But Mary hears it. Here's what they're saying. And she says, what? And she's crying. She getting emotional. What? And when she did that, it made the man mad. And he grabs her by her arm. And he was like, I'm going to take you to your room. Okay, thinking it's a room. No. He takes her inside. We're inside the building. He opens up the door and makes her go down the steps to the basement. And she's like crying, like, no, I don't want to go down there. And they wrestling and all that. And he pushes her on the couch. Then he opens up his hand. Then he pushes it on her face and pushes her down. And, she yelling and screaming. She wants her mommy. And then the guy starts doing things that you shouldn't do to little girls. I won't go into detail, but I'm sure you can catch what I'm talking about. And she's screaming and hollering for her mommy, and she's crying for help.
He basically raped her.
Thank you. There you go. And she's screaming and hollering for somebody to help her. God, help me, mommy, grandma, somebody help her. Okay? So then he leaves, and he tells her before he leaves, you're going to make me the richest, happiest man on earth or something like that. And she was wondering what he meant by that. And he told her, tomorrow will be your first day. So the next day comes, the wife brings her a bowl of cereal and his banana, and then she eats. She tells her to leave her stuff at the bottom of the steps, and then the man comes down there and has his way with her again and raped her. Now, after this day, that continued. It was either him or his men that he was bringing through to have their way with her. So then the chapter ends with her, like, saying, what does he mean by that? And by the end of the chapter, based on him coming down there and bringing other men, she figured it out, what he meant when he said, you were going to make me the richest, happiest man. Okay, then we go into the last chapter that we're going to talk about today. It starts to talk about Emma's mother. So we go from Mary, talking about Mary, to get to this new place. Then we talk about Emma some more and her children. Now we're going to flip the script and talk about her mother, Emma's mother.
DJ Dika, can you tell the listeners who Mary is, and can you tell the listeners who Emma is?
Can you do that for me, please?
Okay. Yeah. So Mary is the counselor, is the woman that's sitting in the office talking to the broken woman. The broken woman with the two little girls, her name is Emma. And that's important to know that, because even when I was reading the book, I was getting confused in the story of who they were talking about. So it's, now we're going into the client, the abused woman, the woman that was contemplating suicide in the office talking to the counselor. We getting ready to talk about how, what she went through, the abuse in her life or whatever. We getting ready to go down the road of talking about her life. Mary is who we were talking about at first, that got raped, that got separated from her mom, and that's the woman that's the owner of the shelters. She's counseling. She's actually not, I called her a counselor, but she's the owner of the shelter, and she's acting the role of a counselor with this woman named Emma. So you can go ahead, DJ. Mm-hmm.
So chapter 7 starts to go into the background of Emma, and it talks about, now we're going to see the story through Emma's mother's eyes. Now, Emma and her mother had a strained relationship, okay? So while Emma was at the shelter, she was able to call her mother and tell her mother that she was all right, because she knew that her mother was looking for her. So on that note, let's back up. So her mother, I can't think of her mother's name right now, but her mother went through some things as well. Growing up, her auntie and her uncle raised her. And I think when she was 17 years old, almost 18 years old, she was in high school and she was with her friend, and, she wasn't happy with the rules that her auntie and uncle were putting on her. We've all been through that. I can relate to that one. That's a whole other story another day. But anyway, so she went out with her friend, and they basically, what is it called? They went out on the street, And where they went, it was like a corner where, the men come by and pick you up, prostitutes, okay? So her friend was encouraging her to come with her and let's go do this and party or whatever. So her friend was doing prostitution on the side, so she was kind of like living a double life. So Emma did not want to go at first, but you know how you be with your homies, and they convince you or encourage you, it's going to be all right, we're going to have fun. So she went. So while they were on this corner and cars are passing by and all that, Emma's mother, we're still talking about Emma's mother, there's this man, and he's a motorcycle, what is it? I don't want to say motorcycle gang, but it was a group of motorcyclists. But they had a positive message. They were motorcyclists for Christ. So the motorcyclist saw Emma and her friend, and he was trying to encourage them and tell them this is not the... Yeah.
So, like the motorcycle, the guy of the motorcycle group, they have an organization. I don't know if the organization still exists or not, but over the years in LA and Los Angeles, California, they had a group, Christian group, that was a motorcycle club, and it was associated with church, with a Christian organization, and it was called Victory Outreach. And Victory Outreach, everybody was a part of everybody that was a part of it, basically, well, that was like the premise of it, like a motorcycle type of organization. Everybody had motorcycles. They wore the motorcycle, like, club jackets, everything. And the jackets have Victory Outreach on them. And so that's when I read that, that's what it reminded me of.
Awesome. So, I didn't even know that existed. Thank you for sharing. So you helped me to remember the name of the motorcycle club in this book. So they were called Motorcyclists for Christ. There's one particular man, and he was Caucasian. He was white. They made emphasis out of the book because Emma was black. So anyway, he's trying to get their attention for them to leave and not be there. So Emma's friend wasn't paying him no mind. She was like, whatever, I'm going to have fun. But he touched Emma's mother. I wish I could remember her name because they said it in the book. I can't remember her name right now. But she didn't want to go because, remember, she really didn't want to go anyway. So when the man was talking to them, she was kind of feeling like she really didn't want to go after her friend had got in the car with these guys. There was a whole bunch of guys in the car, and she in the middle of the seat, and he flashed her money. And the other guy is screaming out the window, like, you coming? And she was like, no. So she's with the motorcycle man, and he starts to minister to her. And when he ministered to her, he changed her life. Well, she actually says that in the book, that it changed her life. And had she not met him, she probably would have went down a road similar to her daughter. Okay? So the man takes her home. Now, her friend ended up having a drug overdose. Her friend ended up dying over a drug overdose. We're back to the motorcycle. He brings Emma home. He brings Emma's mother home. And they talked on the phone.